You know, we've got $1,000 putters, custom fittings, high-tech balancing to the putter face, high-tech shafts, newfangled green reading methods that are supposedly backed by math and science, and the greens are smoother and better than they've ever been before, and yet putting hasn't improved in 30 years. Not for amateurs, not for the pros. Why is that? So going back to at least 1987, putting statistics on the PGA Tour have not changed. It's been an average of over 29 putts per round for the tour. Yeah, the top 5 every year are just under 28. They're 27.6 to 27.9, but the average is over 29 for the tour pros, and the average for amateurs is 40 putts per round. We ought to putt better. And in this video, I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why we don't putt better, and then some solutions on how to fix that. First reason that the statistics really haven't improved is the simple fact that putting is hard. It's not easy. Our natural tendencies teach us the wrong thing. You have to learn how to putt, and then you have to practice. And the big problem is most people don't practice, or if they do practice, they don't practice in a way that translates to the game on the course. And I'd say that's 100% true for amateurs, but in a large way, that's also true for professionals. They don't practice on the practice green in a way that translates to the course. In fact, that's such a big one, it deserves a whole video on its own, and I'll do one of those soon on this very thing, practicing in a way that translates to the course. Second reason, and we're going to spend some time with some solutions here, the second reason that we don't putt any better than we do is a lot of us never really learned how to putt the right way, and so we don't know the fundamentals, and we learn them in chunks and pieces, not in the way that we ought to learn them. And if we do ever learn them, we get away from them and go back to our natural tendencies, and it's a problem. So yeah, in this video, I'm going to talk about mistakes that almost everyone makes on the fundamentals and how to check yourself so that you can catch it when you get away from proper fundamentals and you correct those. And we can't cover every possible mistake in this video. That's a reason you ought to subscribe to the channel or check out my online course, How to Putt the Right Way. It covers everything, but I'm going to give you some of the big ones and some solutions to those here. One of the biggest ones that I see is people still step up to the ball, and I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see that, but they'll step up to a ball and they're standing with the weight on the balls of their feet when they're putting and in their golfing game. And some, like the PGA instruction manual, even suggests that you put your weight on the balls of the feet. Problem with that is, as humans, our bodies aren't designed for us to stand on the balls of our feet. Our bodies are designed for us to stand with our weight here over our ankles. And so when we're standing with our weight on the balls of the feet, especially in putting, we get overbalanced, and it affects our alignment and our eyesight and all kinds of other things. It affects our ability to make a nice, smooth stroke. So I want you to go out and practice standing with your weight over your ankles. Feel your weight over your ankles. In fact, you ought to have your hips aligned with your ankles. Related to that, standing with a weight on the balls of the feet, I see a whole lot of people bending from here in the back. And as we get older, most of us men tend to have a little bit of a bend here anyway. That's problems with our posture in our day-to-day life, but you can't let that affect your posture on the golf course. I'm going to get over a ball to illustrate that for you. But I see people all the time on the golf course bending from up here in their back. And that's a problem because it gets our weight, and people have told us, oh, you have to have your eyes directly over the ball. I want you to try this. Step up to the golf ball, and instead of sticking out your butt or bending way over when you putt, get the feeling and the sensation of your thighs going back. You see, if I stick out my butt, it's like that. But if I bend from where my thigh connects to my hip, just pull my thighs back, then down to the ball, flex my knees a little bit. Now I'm in a much better posture. And your posture affects your putting because it gives you room to make a stroke for your hands to swing freely below your shoulders without getting too far inside and you have to get wristy to complete the stroke, or too far outside and you're cutting across the ball. So practice getting in that posture where your weight is over your ankles, you pull your thighs back a little bit, and a little bit of flex into the knees to get to the ball. Work on your posture. That'll help you make a much smoother stroke. Another big problem I see for people with
Contact.
putting is alignment, especially people who are right-handed and right-eye dominant. What happens is we get set up to a ball and our feet are a little bit open, or if we get our feet even lined up squarely, our shoulders, see my shoulder here is pointed, and I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but my shoulder is turned out to the left, and there's a reason for that. We're right eye dominant, we've got our eyes over or just inside the ball, and we're trying to see the line, and so we open our shoulders a little bit so that we can see that line. And that creates a problem. That's a natural tendency. What happens from there is we miss putts by pulling them to the left because that's where our shoulders and hips are aligned, or we develop a stroke bias to correct that and we start pushing it to the right, and now our putting is inconsistent. And a lot of you, if you think about it, that's exactly what you do. Well, I'm going to illustrate that here for you with a picture and walk through how difficult this is to see, and then we'll talk about some ways to fix it. So our golfer is set up to a putt here, and at first glance, the setup looks pretty good, and then you start to notice that the putter face is pointed out to her right, and you compare that with her eyes are not looking on the same line, and then you notice that her feet at least are square to her eye line, so that's a good thing. And then you notice that her arms are a little bit open. You can see how her right arm is out in front of her left arm. And then you notice that her hips and legs are open to the target. And what you can see is she's developed a stroke bias pushing to the right to compensate for the fact that she's lined up aiming left. So as you can see, it's really easy to be off on your alignment, which means you're off on aiming your putts, which often causes a stroke bias and all kinds of other problems, and that creates inconsistency. Let's talk for a minute about how to fix that. There are a number of different ways to fix that. In my online course, How to Putt the Right Way, I walk you through building a setup station. You can also use, and Cameron Smith, one of the best putters on the PGA Tour, uses a putting mirror every single day of his life to check that his eyes are in the right position, that his shoulders are pointed square to his target line. You can use any of a number of tools. I like to use a lot of times because I can use these in my home indoors or out on the course, but a couple of alignment sticks. Make sure that they're parallel, and then you want to set up in a way that makes sure your feet and shoulders are square with that alignment stick. I'll bet a lot of you who are right-handers will discover that at first you're set up like this. You're off that alignment stick. Your shoulders are a little bit open. You got to fix that. Then you can learn to make a great smooth stroke that goes up the line, and you'll hole more putts. Another big mistake in fundamentals that I see amateurs make is trying to control speed and distance with how fast they move the putter or how hard they stroke the ball. When you do that, you're adding variables, and putting is hard, as indicated by the statistics. So what you need to do is learn. I feel like I'm rolling every putt or I'm stroking every putt with the same amount of force. And I control the speed and distance not by swinging harder, stroking softer, but by keeping the same rhythm and tempo, and then moving the putter shorter distance for a short putt, longer distance for a long putt. Try that, work on that, focus on that. I spend a lot of time on that on this channel and a lot of time on that in my online courses. That's the only way you can be consistent at controlling speed and distance. And that's a putting fundamental that a lot of people don't learn. Another big putting mistake that amateurs make is if something starts to go off just a little bit, instead of going back to these fundamentals and asking, is my setup right? Am I aiming where I think I'm aiming? Do I have the proper grip and connection? Am I making a good stroke? Am I managing speed and distance with tempo and length of stroke? Instead of going back to those basic elements, anytime your putting falls off a little bit, oh, it's this putter, I got to get a new putter. No, you don't. This is a tool. Some tools are better than others, yes, but it's not a magic wand. You need to learn to use this tool properly. Or people will change their grip. Oh, I'm going to switch to this hand low or that hand low or this kind of grip or that kind of grip, or I'm going to put my hands on the putters and grip it this way. All of that is nonsense. Yeah, it's okay to change grip if you change to a grip for a reason that helps you correct a problem with your stroke. But you don't need to do that if you work on these basic fundamentals, which is why I emphasize these things over and over on this channel, which is why we created an online course called How to Putt the Right Way, and you can get to that in the video description. There's one last thing that you need to do to make sure you have the putting basics and fundamentals covered before you start trying to swap and switch and change putters and change grips and change everything else. And that's this. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Check out this video on the screen now. Until next time, here's to you making more putts.